Hello and welcome, everybody, to the Galint Melee Open Summer Edition. This is the Analyst Desk coming at you guys with the top 8 preview, talking about all the cool things that happened over the span of this wonderful, wonderful weekend. My name is Turned Down for Walt, and I am joined by, I guess this is an episode of the Mix Up, huh? So we got Radar SSBM, the co host here, and the other co host joining us is, of course, the illustrious Mr. Dark Gen X. And I think we're really excited to talk to you guys about some of the cool matchups we have coming on very, very soon. But how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great, and I'm glad to be here back with another analyst desk alongside the mix-up. How about you?
Yeah, I'm super glad to be here. I'm super excited to commentate as well. I've done a lot of prep. I've done a lot of watching VODs for players to come and trying to catch up on the tournament in general. And we've had a pretty crazy event so far. I know Dark Gen X, before we started, was talking about just some of the crazy upsets and kind of like Cinderella story runs that we've seen so far. So, I'm curious what you can say about that and kind of share it with the rest of the stream.
For sure, for sure. So the first thing I want to bring up in terms of like crazy upsets, a player who hasn't really been on too many people's radars recently, Man Ray, a Ganondorf player, and
Yeah.
also I want to say a good Smite player and friends with Wizrobe. He was the third seed of his round one pool and made a crazy run in top 32, beating Dark Silence, Nathan, Midnight Blue, and YCZ all in a row for top 16. So I think that's like one overall upset run that was pretty crazy. We don't really see too many Ganons, and Man Ray isn't really one of the first people who comes to mind when you think of active net play Ganondorfs. So I think that's like one run I just want to bring up in general. There were a couple of overall like pretty good upsets that happened. Acid beating Azul, the Real Thing beating Ben. Rishi, who hasn't been super active, he beat Lucky, and
Yeah.
then Bobby beat Two Saint.
Yeah, I think one
Uh,
of my favorite sets so far that I didn't cast, which also huge props to Man Ray out of the tournament at 13th place for this bracket. I casted his final set against Aklo, which was, I was saying it with Blur the other day. I think that was probably a tougher draw that he could have gotten, just considering how patient Aklo is as a player. And we're going to kind of get to more of him later because he is featured in our top 8 as well. But yeah, Man Ray was just incredibly impressive. And I think to your point with Rishi, my set of the event so far was had to have been Rishi versus Polish, I think. Super crazy 5 game set, a lot of games that went almost to time and everything. Really competitive, just incredible stuff from both of them.
I remember seeing on Polish's, I think it was on Polish's Twitter, that he said that it was some of the best Marth Peach ever played and that he was glad to play the set. So if there's any bot of that anywhere, I'd love to see it when all this is over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it
absolutely.
does remind me of I spoke with Polish last night to talk a bit about kind of all things to do with the bracket, where kind of like what he's excited to be playing, the matchup that he has coming up, which is Marth Peach. And one of the questions I asked him was like, what motivates you to play Melee? Because surprisingly, the answer is very, very different depending on who you ask. And he answered saying, I love self improvement and the improvement loop that Melee gives me. It's a really fun game and I love traveling. But the biggest thing that stuck out to me was he says, I'm more interested in playing at like a banger set, like something amazing, than beating three or four people who played poorly. So, last night in his set in that matchup, like that kind of fits with what he's saying, where it's like that's the kind of Melee he wants to play. He doesn't really care if he does well or not. It's just about not winning or losing. It's more about playing really well, and that's like I think kind of reminds me like of a Mango sort of personality, where it's like, yeah, winning is really important, but I also just want to show like how good I am, and it's fun to hear that for sure.
Yeah, I think
It's
that's a good
definitely refreshing.
that's definitely a good place for us to start because we will be seeing Polish against the Marth on the loser side for 7th place, starting us off. So, kind of taking a look at the top 8 brackets as a whole, our last remaining 8 players is actually kind of an interesting mixed bag of players that you probably wouldn't have expected if you just went off of seeding alone. But I guess let's start off with the loser side bracket because you had mentioned Polish. He's going to be playing another Marth in Kadoran, coming in for losers round 1. 5 game set versus Rishi, very competitive, back and forth, went down to the wire. I believe Rishi actually edged that one out to put Polish into the losers bracket now, and he's got arguably a tougher Marth ahead of him in Kadoran right now, who's been playing really, really well through the weekend, I think.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say no. Go ahead.
So Kadora's been playing amazing this weekend as well. Definitely showing signs of the summit level up. To get to top 8, Kadoran he beat Logan, formerly known as LSD, 3-2, and I think that's a pretty interesting set in terms of the fact that like these two are up and coming Marths on opposite coasts. Logan being from South Carolina, Kadoran being from SoCal. And although they were both at Summit, they didn't actually play a set there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, that's
So it was
correct.
cool to see those two play, and overall Kadoran like getting on top of that. With Polish, he is also a very consistent player, not super active in the net play era, but whenever he shows up, he has very good results. He beats like a lot of like top 50 level players, top 10 level players, etc. And both of these players are primed for and have been preparing throughout the weekend. So I think this is going to be a good set regardless who wins.
I think for me, one of the things that I would say both of these players have in common is I would put money down that these two players within about a year or two will be some of the best people, if not the best at their character. So like obviously Zane, kind of the best Marth right now. I'm not necessarily saying Kadoran is going to kind of exceed Zane. He probably already is the number 2 Marth. You know, kind of there's a conversation around that as well. But like he has a lot of potential, is very dedicated to improving. You know, we all make jokes about him with the gloves he wore at Summit, the heated ones. And same thing with Polish. Like Polish really strangely has like such a quick rate of improvement. You know, a couple of years ago, just barely breaking into the top 100. Now, like had amazing performance at SCL, and just every time I watch him play, I'm really, really like just impressed. I guess there's no other really word for it. Is just kind of I think in a year easily, like when we ask who's the best peach in the world, the answer to that question might be Polish. The answer to that question might be Polish right now. Even like I know we have Lod. Like I'm kind of curious what you guys think about that. Like who are kind of where would we rank the Marths and the Peaches right now? Because I feel like there's a lot of kind of debate in that space, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting point to bring up. There really haven't been a lot for a representation for either of those characters. You know, I think the big ones that come to mind for Marth at the moment, and we're gonna try to move along a little bit just because I think we're a bit short on time, just from some of the previous segments going on. But the Marths that come to mind right now are kind of the Summit Marths. You know, Zane, Kadoran, Logan.
Absolutely.
The peaches that come to mind are there were none at Summit, so that's kind of the hard part to get by. Because yeah, Polish is very good, Lot is very good. You know, Triff we haven't been able to see a bit just due to the region disparity and everything like that. So it's hard to get a really solid gauge on who lines up where, which is where events like these are very good at kind of getting at least a baseline of okay, Polish is in top 8 right now. He's going to be playing against Kadoran for 7th place. Kadoran was just at Smash Summit 11. It was really good showing from him overall, but can he stack up against some of the peaches that might have not been around, you know, over the past few months? And that I think to me is going to be a very interesting question to answer getting into uh you know, this top 8 in the next half hour or so.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of, like, also there's Kalamazoo, who in the past has
Yes.
done pretty well against Kotarin, and
Oh
in the
yeah.
net play era hasn't been super active as of recent, but historically has been doing great. And additionally, another peach that I think has been a little overlooked recently is Mog. I mean, he's top
Oh
100
yeah,
right now,
actually.
but he's been doing great recently, beating like Gatsu, beating Lucky. Overall, doing great at all the events he enters, and it's like very hard to get a good grasp on like who the best peach is because of how few are entering, and there isn't really like an Armada-esque peach like who's a definitive number 1 right now. So it's definitely a lot harder for people to get the peach practice in general,
Sure.
which may be why these peaches are also doing a lot better because people aren't really practicing as much against peach.
For
Yeah, I
sure, but
think there's
I
also an argument for even like Kalamazoo in there as well. Very talented peach in his own right. Sorry, Radar, you were saying.
well just yeah, like I think that right now there isn't a clear number 1, or there are people like yeah, Keizu, Kalamazoo, same person. Like but what am I trying to say? They they kind of, I think very quickly, like maybe even in the next 6 months, we will have a clear answer to that, just because of the development of Kazu Lod, in med school now, graduated, I think, and is actually just a doctor. So I don't know like how to put kind of his potential and weigh his potential, because he's such a good player, but also like when you have your responsibilities sort of split, it's a bit more tricky. But because we have people like Mog, Bbats, Ryobeat, now that land tournaments are back, I know that is another name that comes to mind. I think, I don't know, there's just a lot of potential, and I think like if you watch the sets that we're about to see, like especially because I think Peach isn't a character that people associate as much with like the crazy high-paced kind of action of Melee in the way that someone like Fox or Falco is. But I actually think these players play in a very, very exciting, fast-paced way, and that's what's really going to kind of bring more attention to them.
Yeah, I think kind of keep moving some things along on this top 8 bracket. An interesting point to note that I know Dark Genix, you're going to have quite a bit to say about this as well. And this was also provided to us by the famous OO moments by Jade. So shout outs to them for kind of assembling some cool bracket notables that kept us in the loop for, events that we weren't able to catch the entirety of. But there's a player in the winner side of this top 8 bracket who I don't think many people would have expected to be here. And that's 13th seed Tyler Swift, who actually kind of went on a rampage and beat all of the new Summit attendees there. 3-1 against Logan, 3-2 against Aklo, and 3-0 against Kadoran. And his first set's going to be against Hungrybox. So I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Because HBox's first seed for this event, and I don't think he was expecting to play against a Pikachu or perhaps another character, because I know Gen you had some information on that as well.
So I want to bring up a little bit of lore in regards to Tyler Swift. First of all, switching between New York and MDVA, amazing player, plays on box now. I don't believe he has lost a land set since coming back. I know he won a Xanadu over Mott Money, Crike twice, and Bone. So on land, he was doing great as well. There is some lore in regards to Tyler Swift Hungrybox, though, that not a lot of people know. So I believe this was around, it was a little bit after the Harry Pogger loss, I believe. And Hungrybox announced on his stream that he was going to do 20 best of 5 sets in a row against Fox players to get himself grinding and back in, I guess, form with the matchup. And he played a couple of like random Foxes and then starts playing against a couple of solid players in a row. And 2 of these players, so he plays against Zuppy and loses. And then he plays against Tyler Swift, who he switches to Fox for this matchup. Like he plays both Pikachu and Fox on box, but plays Fox for a couple of the harder matchups. Sometimes he goes for Peach, sometimes goes for Ice Climbers, sometimes goes for Pop. Like a lot of these matches that it's a lot harder for Pikachu to play. And it's pretty solid too. He beats Hungrybox, and Hungrybox shuts off the stream. And Hungrybox is currently sitting against Tyler Swift in winter semifinals of this tournament. So anything can happen, folks.
So you're saying HBox can exit this tournament, get double eliminated by Tyler Swift, potentially, lose in winners, make it all the way back to grands, and lose again. And that is a real thing, because he has history.
There's a reality where that occurs. Like, I think the funny thing too, and this is far less interesting, but I just can't help but point it out, is in the winner side of the bracket right now, 2 out of 4 players use a first name that isn't their first name in their tag. Like Tyler Swift and Bobby are not named Tyler and Bobby. And I've always find like there's a certain kind of player that has like, I think your tag says a lot about who you are. And I think kind of a bit of a more wild play style if you're going to be like, yeah, I'm just going to use Tyler as a name. I think Tyler Swift is a great tag, by the way. It's very memorable. It's funny. So I'm really excited to see those sets. I think you already mentioned this, but being on a box always makes you play like a bit differently. It kind of opens up certain options and sort of closes others, I guess, is a decent way to put it. So I really don't think it would be an upset to see Tyler take this at all. Like you said, I don't think it's that crazy. There's a very real possibility. And we'll find out in about 10 minutes. So
yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about that other winner side set as well, since you brought it up. You know, the first name, not first name basis of Bobby against the second seed for this event, None, Bond, WizzyFan 109, whatever you want to call him as. This is going to be a tough one, I think, if you're Bobby. Radar, you and I actually casted his last
Yeah.
set at Gommel 2021, where it was a quick 3-0. I mean, Bobby had this like really insane showing towards the end and then just had the self-destruct. And we were kind of just like, okay, I guess that's how it ends, But very, very tough one. It looks like lifetime, according to PG stats, 3-8 on the year. So pretty tough. I think the online era has shown that none really has what it takes to take this tournament for sure. But I don't know what you guys think. Do you think Bobby can pull one out here?
I mean, Falco Falcon is a pretty difficult matchup in general for Falcon, but none has shown like he's pretty electrifying. His punish game against space is insane, and it's something that we got to point out. About 2 weeks ago at Rollback Rumble, the big one, Bobby did get upset, drowning pools to two different Falcons, Midnight Blue and Vish. So I'm not sure what that says in regards to maybe Bobby's practiced a bunch since then. Maybe he's got some new tricks up his sleeve, etc. But I don't know. I think none is the strong favorite coming into the set, and I'm not really sure what we're gonna see. It'll be a good. I think we'll get a good set. We're gonna see a lot of like aggressive, electrifying plays and whatnot. But I think that none is the strong favorite.
I think so. I watched a couple of the sets, including the one that we commentated or rewatched them rather. I think the problem that Bobby has, well, first of all, I think none is probably the single best Falcon at the matchup. I'm pretty sure he has a single win against Mango at the birthday bash, if I recall correctly, but also just like he is very, very, very good at a matchup that for a long, long time people would say is super, super Falco favored. I'm not actually that convinced that it's as favored as people like to say it is, but yeah, I do agree there are some challenges. But I think the thing that Bobby really, really struggles with is there's kind of this like rotating mix up that none has where he'll either kind of do various spacings of Nair, and that makes Bobby kind of afraid to either laser and push in because if he gets caught jumping, he can't CC the Nair. And if he tries to start CCing the Nair, then none does the stomp. And the whole time I watch their sets, it just feels like Bobby doesn't really have a good read on like when he should be going for which option. Sometimes he'll laser and none just like gets an opening. He just doesn't really seem to be comfortable in the neutral at all. And then I don't think we really need to tell people that none has an amazing punish game. So if he kind of consistently is looking a little bit lost in neutral, it's going to be a very big uphill battle to be able to take it over none. But I am still very excited to see it.
Yeah, I think it does beg the question, second seed, probably one of the favorites to win this tournament, of course, just based on seeding alone. But, it kind of begs the question, what does that winners finals look like? Especially, when we're saying the lore has Tyler Swift beating Hungrybox here. Things can get really mixed up here, and those players are eventually going to fall to the losers bracket. And I do want to talk about the last losers round one event of top 8, which is kind of like a half regional rivalry, I would say, right? Rishi used to be in New York for a short period. I don't know if he's still there, but
Yeah,
it's going to be
MDVA right
Rishi
now.
Rishi against Aklo for our last losers round one, and this is for 7th place as well. Last one to round out our top 8. What do you guys think about that?
So no, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. So Rishi is another one of these players who we all know is very solid, doesn't really enter too much, and whenever he enters, does really well. To make top 8, he beat Lucky 3-1 and also Acid 3-0. So he's definitely very strong in the Fox matchup. Additionally, according to Smash data, the last time they played, Apple actually beat Rishi. So I think that this is going to be a good set. They haven't played in a long time. We haven't seen too much Rishi in general in these tournaments. It's great to see him enter tournaments, and just overall, I think that we're going to get a good Marth Fox set. I think that it is somewhat of a regional match in that they've been in New York City. They used to go to nightclub and whatnot, but they haven't played in a while. So I think we're going to get a fresh match. I'm not really sure who's going to win.
So I did speak with Aklo last night. He was streaming, kind of just doing some warm up with his brother. And I wanted to kind of ask him some couple questions, again, just sort of to prep for today. And he basically said that he doesn't think the matchup is like super one sided on either end. Feels it's fairly even. But one of the big things that he feels he does differently in this matchup, that matchup being Fox versus Marth, is he plays to not get hit rather than playing to hit Marth. So he said, like, it's not, I'm like, so do you mean like kind of a whiff punish style? And he's like, not really. It's about forcing him in bad spots where like he doesn't have many options and trying very hard to like not do the opposite. And so I think oftentimes you'll see even successfully Foxes, like, you know, we just saw Mango last was it last weekend, I guess? Seems like ages ago, but crazy set where he was really forcing Zane to kind of pick certain high committal options and finding ways into his defenses. I think we're going to see a very different play style in Akla where it's about kind of weaving around that. And, you know, that will be very interesting. I do actually think I want to give the edge a bit to Aklo. Akla's been very active, playing a ton, but I think this will be a close set. I think honestly, a lot of the matchups are very kind of even for the most part, especially on the loser's side. Like they really could go either way, and that's what makes this so fun to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, this is a very interesting top eight to say the least. You know, we kind of mentioned it earlier. Many of the top eight seeds, you know, Toussaint, Logan, Ben, Zamu, have not made it here, which is crazy to think about. Those are, you know, third, fourth, sixth, and seventh seeds all missing from this bracket. So this should be a very, very cool one to watch. Suffice it to say as well, Radar and myself will be casting the first half of this event very shortly, so we're very much looking forward to that as well. It should be really exciting, and if we had some more time to talk about, you know, kind of projections moving into winners finals and how Tyler Swift is going to win the whole thing, I'm sure we would talk about that. But with our final minutes here, guys, who do you have as predictions here? Let's talk about, you know, first place, second place, maybe third place. Where do you guys see this bracket panning out?
Do you want to start, Gen X?
Sure. While I would love to see a Tyler Swift Cinderella run, and I would love to see Tyler Swift take grand finals, I think HBox has that. He's definitely a lot more in form. He's been playing a ton at Summit. He did basically nothing but play and stream for the last like 5 or 6 days at the Summit. I know I was there. I do think that HBox has that. And in terms of Nunn versus Bobby, I think Nunn is going to take that as well. I think HBox is the favorite to take this. I don't think this is the same, I guess, less consistent net play HBox that we've seen. He's shown that through his very strong performance at Summit, getting third place as like the 11th seed or something like that. So I think HBox wins. However, I would not be surprised to see Tyler Swift make it pretty far in losers. But if I were to guess, I would say HBox 1, Nunn, and Kadoran 2 and 3. I don't know who's going to win that if they end up playing in Grams, but I see a world where Kadora makes a very large run. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, so I agree with the HBox thing. I think there was a bit of a mental block going on there. And I think that mental block he would say is associated with online versus offline. But I think it kind of started that way and then became something bigger. And Summit was a way for him to sort of brush that off. You know, I don't know if you guys agree with that statement, what chat thinks, but like it just felt like we really, like you said, saw a return to form in HBox. And I kind of find it hard to believe that that's all just like, oh yeah, it's online versus offline. I think we're going to see an HBox who's feeling more confident, who's not afraid to go for, you know, more aggressive risks, for someone who's, you know, going to be more decisive about how he wants to handle edge guard situations. And I think that does make him the favorite for the event. And then in terms of kind of the other contenders, I'm really liking Nunn's chances. I expect that to be the kind of winners finals round over Bobby. I think Polish is an amazing player that literally could get 2 grands. Like I honestly do. So, but Cordoran is also so good. So that one I really have no idea. If I had to guess, if they weren't facing each other, I'd actually would say Polish and Kodorin or like my 3 and 4. But one of those guys, and then probably Aklo. Those are the kind of the top 4. Any rotation of that, I think, are who we should be looking out for. But it really is close. I don't think there are clear favorites.
I'm going to go against the grain for both of you and say that I'm a true believer of the Tyler Swift legacy. Say that Tyler Swift is going to make it all the way here. I don't know, HBox or none second, but let's see some Aklo Link. How about that? I'm pretty excited for that, and I hope maybe we get some of that going into that loser side bracket as well. But with that, guys, I think that's going to be the conclusion of this analyst desk. But we got a lot of really good melee to check out in this top 8, and the only way to do it is to get going and get watching on that. So we're going to cut to a short break, And in just a few minutes, we will be right back with more Galint Melee Open. Keep it locked right here, guys. And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon.
Who's that Captain Falcon? Let's narrow down the options. Who could it be? It's actually Bond. Who's that Captain Falcon? Let's narrow down the options. Who could it be? It's Gatsu. Who's that Falco? Let's narrow down the options. Who could it be? It's Magi. Who's that Falco? Let's narrow down the options. Who could it be? It's Mango.